we've got some scientists here hard at work and some students again from Madison Elementary. And these scientists and these students are working on, well, let me see here. Is that you, Steve?
Hey, Eddie,
all right.
How are you?
All right, very
Hi,
good,
Eddie.
Steve. Good to see you. This is my friend Steve Rumrell. He's a research scientist. And Steve, what are you working on there?
Well, we're working on eelgrass, and eelgrass is my favorite plant in the estuary. It's a long, skinny plant. It gets its name because it's long and skinny, just like a green eel. You can see it in the water here. It just moves around in the water. It's a terrestrial plant, meaning that it's got roots, and it conducts photosynthesis. It grows just like a normal plant, but here it is down in the estuary.
Can I ask, Steve, does this plant just grow and then like pop off pods and grow more plants, or how does it reproduce?
It reproduces vegetatively by growing through these roots and rhizomes on the bottom, but it can also produce very small flowers and seeds, which will disperse in the currents and then land back down in other locations.
Very good.
It's really a terrific plant. You can see here in the upper intertidal, it'll occur right where we can stand, but way down in the deep water, down in the mysterious depths down there where we really can't see, its distribution is limited by the amount of light because it's a normal plant. It has to conduct photosynthesis.
All right. And so I see you've got some other researchers with you. Hi, Allie. How are you?
Good.
This is
Good.
Allie Helms. And Allie, tell us why is this important? What are we doing here?
South Slough is actually one of 70 sites around the world, and we're participating in a monitoring program to track the status and trends of eelgrass because it is in decline. And we make lots of measurements in order to keep track of what's happening to the eelgrass bed. So some of the measurements we make are...
We use the same transect and quadrats to measure every time.
And what else are we measuring?
Density and percent cover. We visually estimate percent cover and count plants for density. And the number of reproductive shoot and height of plants.
I'm not sure, but I see something coming up through the muck here. What is this?
Whoa! Whoa. What is that?
Whoa!
Oh my gosh!
This creature crawling up through the muck looks like it's eelgrass come to life. This is terrifying. It's coming closer. Hold there. What are you? Stand back, kids. We don't know. Who is this?
I'm the eelgrass monster.
You're the eelgrass monster. You don't sound very scary at all.
What's going on up here?
Why have you come up, eelgrass monster?
Well, I've been living down there at the bottom of the eelgrass bed for a long time now. And I was wondering if anybody could tell me if I'm going to be able to do that in the future.
Wow, so things are changing for you?
Yeah. It seems like there's less light down there these days.
Less light. So I'm looking down in this water and I'm seeing a lot of muck that is stirred up. We've got a scientist here, Dr. Steve Rumrell. Maybe he can give us a clue.
Yeah,
Steve,
hey,
why don't you come on over?
I think what I wanted to say is, you know, your habitat down there is determined by the amount of light that you can get on your blades. And you can see all this mud in here that attenuates or drops out the amount of light that you can get. So what we might expect is that your habitat down in the deep water is going to be determined by how much light is there and also how much mud is in the water.
So is this likely to change then as sea level rises?
Well, this is why we're concerned for you, because with sea level rise, as the water comes up, we can expect that the amount of light to get to your habitat is going to decrease. In addition, we might have more rainfall and more mud washing into the water, and that's going to mean even less light for you. So, buddy, you're in trouble.
So, Steve, what do we call it when that mud's up in the water like that? Is there a name for that?
So we call that turbidity.
Turbidity.
Yep.
So turbidity is a bad thing, is a good thing?
Turbidity is a bad thing if you're the eelgrass monster.
If you're the eelgrass monster. So,
Yep.
But it can also be kind of a normal condition.
It's a normal condition in the estuary, so we get lots of sediment washing through here. But the deep water habitat for the eelgrass is really a concern for us if we have more and more and more turbidity.
All right. Well, hey, I'm going to head back up to my office, and I'm going to see if we can get some more answers for the eelgrass monster here, because it's a little spooky, isn't it? So would you like to join us up at the office?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Allie as well, if you'd like to come up, and maybe we can answer some questions. What's your question? Tell me your name.
Zach,
And Zach, what school are you from?
Madison Elementary.
All right, and Zach, what's your question?
Why are your blades so green?
So why are your blades so green, eelgrass monster?
Well, my blades are full of something called chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is something that all plants have, and they use it to make food.
So that chlorophyll, plants can make their own food. Animals can't do this, right? Any other questions here? All right, I have a question. Is eelgrass, does this only grow in Coos Bay, Oregon?
No, it grows everywhere, all across the world.
And is it always called eelgrass? Are there other names?
Sometimes it's called seagrass, sometimes it's called saltgrass, mostly eelgrass.
All right. Well, eelgrass monster, as you rise up, I notice you've got things growing on you too. So eelgrass isn't always so clean. Sometimes there are things that grow on it, right?
Right.
What kinds of things grow on eelgrass?
Well, lots of other microscopic plants grow on eelgrass. And sometimes little snails or crab or sometimes clams. Shrimp sometimes burrow in the mud beneath my blades.
And I want to ask, I'm going to ask our scientists here, if I can, just a question, a couple questions. So first, I want to ask, Tom, how do we know that these young young fish use this eelgrass? Do we swim in the eelgrass? What do we do?
We actually go out and we seine. We develop seining sites within the eelgrass beds, and we actually seine and run a large net sweeping through there for about every 2 weeks throughout the course of the summer, and subsequently we know what species of fish are utilizing the eelgrass and also what they're eating, and we know that that's a direct relation to what's on the eelgrass.
All right, so do you capture those fish once you've seined them?
We do. We capture them. We actually take measurements off of them, and we look at species, not only complexity but also abundance.
So I have to ask this: have you ever been underwater in an eelgrass meadow and seen fish?
I have, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to see. It truly is. It's a great, great experience.
And when they see you coming, they probably head the other way.
They tend to leave. Yeah, the law of the estuary is if it's smaller than you, eat it. If it's bigger than you, you better get out of there. So.
And you ever run into the eelgrass monster down there?
I'm afraid now, so I have not.
All right, and I have a question here for Steve Romero and Ali, but I'll ask Steve, is if eelgrass were to start disappearing from an area, is there any way to restore it?
We can restore eelgrass. We've been very successful in taking plants, digging them up, and moving them to other locations. That's transplanting one bed to another place. You can also propagate them by raising their seeds and growing the seeds up in a protected habitat and then planting the seeds. So absolutely yes, eelgrass restoration is a viable option.
Now we've got to think about that in light of what you just told us down here, because we've got this potential for increased turbidity, and we should plan to do that. Ellie, have you helped with this kind of work before?
I have helped in the science law actually to transplant.
Pretty neat and
eelgrass.
clean, isn't it?
Not really.
Nah.
You get pretty dirty.
Yeah, I know. Estuary Eddie, I work this shoreline, and I know it can be pretty mucky down here. So, all right. So we've learned quite a bit now about the past. We've learned about the present. And we're going to start talking about the future here of Empire Shores and find out whether the doom is certain for this eelgrass monster or whether indeed he has a chance.